So this is the first problem from last year's 2022 STAAR test for algebra, and I'm going to be going through every single problem that was on that test. So, number one, the graph of quadratic function r is shown on the grid. Which answer choice best represents the intercepts of the graph of r? So we have two kinds of intercepts. We have x-intercepts and we have y-intercepts. Obviously, x-intercepts cross the x-axis and y-intercepts cross the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and circle those, and I'm going to go ahead and write out the coordinates for each. So for my x-intercepts, I have -10, 0, and 2, 0. And then for my y-intercept, I have 0, -5. From there, I just look at my answer choices, and my answer has to be letter D. This is number 2 from the 2022 Algebra STAAR test. It says, a worker is packing items in boxes. The table shows the linear relationship between the number of items the worker has packed in boxes after different amounts of time. Which statement describes the rate of change to the number of items the worker packed in boxes with respect to the number of minutes the worker has been packing items in boxes? So rate of change is just the same thing as slope. So if we can find how many items he can pack in 1 minute, that's going to tell us our answer. So I'm going to go ahead and look at our table, and I noticed that from the first row to the second row, we're changing 2 minutes. We're going from 5 to 7. In that time period, we're also going from 20 items packed to 28 items packed, which is a change of 8. So in 2 minutes, we packed 8 items. So obviously, by just some simple math, in 1 minute, we would pack 4 items. And so our answer is going to have to be letter H. Number 3 from the 2022 Algebra STAAR test. It says, a system of equations is graphed on the grid. Which system of equations is best represented by the graph? So all we need to do is find the equation for both lines in slope-intercept form. So let's start with the line that's increasing, and I'm going to mark it with a blue dot. The first thing I notice is that it has a y-intercept of -3, and then to find the slope, I'm going to pick 2 points on the line, and I'm going to count up my rise and my run to find my slope. So the rise is 2, the run is 5, so that means that the slope is 2 over 5. Now, for the next line, I'm going to mark it with a green dot. I noticed that its y-intercept is -8, and then I'm going to do the same process and pick 2 lines and find the slope for this line. So right away, I'm seeing that the line is decreasing as we go from left to right, so I know that my slope is going to be negative. So once I make my triangle, I see that my rise is 3, which is really a -3, and then my run is 5, so my slope is going to be -3 over 5. Now I just have to plug in my slope and y-intercept for my equation. So for the blue line, I'm going to have y equals 2 over 5x minus 3. And for the green line, I'm going to have -3 over 5x minus 8. And so if I look at my answer choices, I should find that my answer is letter B. Number 4 from the 2022 Algebra STAAR test. Which graph represents y as a function of x? So in order to tell if a graph is a function, I'm going to use something called the vertical line test. And so if I draw a vertical line through the graph and I touch that graph more than once, it's not a function. So for letter F, I draw my vertical line, and you'll notice that I touch the graph twice, and so this one is not going to be a function. When I draw my line through letter H, I'm going to touch it once, twice, and 3 times, so it is also not a function. For letter G, I'm going to cross the graph twice, so it's also not a function. And then for letter J, whenever I draw my vertical line, I only touch that graph once, so it is a function. This is number 5 from the 2022 Algebra STAAR test. What is the solution to this system of equations? So we can do one of 3 things whenever we're trying to solve a system of equations. We can either graph it, use substitution, or do elimination. Personally, I like to do substitution, but you could definitely also do elimination with this kind of problem as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first equation and I'm going to get y by itself. That way it says y equals and then whatever my equation is. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and that's going to end up giving me y equals -2x plus 40. Now that I know what y is equal to, I can take the rest of that expression and substitute it into the other equation for y and then just solve for the variable. So I'm going to have x minus 2 parentheses, -2x plus 40 equals -20. And from here, it's basically just like solving an equation. So I'm going to distribute my negative 2 to both terms, and I'm going to end up getting x plus 4x minus 80 is equal to negative 20. From here, I combine like terms, so I'll get 5x minus 80 is equal to negative 20. Then I'll cancel out my constant by adding 80 to both sides, and that'll leave me with 5x equals 60. And then I divide by 5 on both sides to get x is equal to 12. So, since we know the number that x is equal to, we can just take that and plug it back into our y equals equation and easily find what y is equal to. So whenever I do that, I'm going to have negative 2 parentheses 12 plus 40. Obviously, negative 2 times 12 is negative 24. And then whenever we add 40 to that, we're going to get positive 16. So our answer is 12, 16, which is letter A. If this video was helpful, then check out the Algebra 1 STAAR cheat sheet that I've created. The link is in my bio, and it's only $5.